Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're diving into a really thought-provoking visual analysis of a pretty intense piece of source material. This one tackles the massive concept of societal transformation. It's an analysis that completely challenges how we view our modern education, our political systems, and our own personal responsibilities in a world that is just rapidly changing. So, if you love dissecting big, structural ideas and questioning the status quo of modern society, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to unpack some really profound arguments today.
Okay, let's dive into this and map out our journey. We'll start with this concept of the era of inflection. Then, we'll contrast knowledge with true education. After that, we'll look at the youth's political awakening, break down the specific demands for systemic reform, and finally, we'll wrap up by talking about fulfilling our actual societal roles.
So Part 1, the era of inflection. The source material establishes this powerful sense of urgency right out of the gate. It frames our current moment not just as another passing phase in the news cycle, but as a critical make-or-break juncture in human history. The speaker essentially argues that we've entered a phase where the old ways of operating are just completely breaking down.
And the speaker lays out this incredibly strict 3-year window. According to the source, 2025 marks the absolute beginning of this inflection point. By 2026, we are right in the thick of it. The present, crucial year where things really come to a head. And then, this window of massive transformation just snaps shut in 2027. So, the idea here is that we are standing right in the middle of this defining societal shift. The warning is stark. If citizens fail to stand upright, engage with these shifts, and actively prepare for the future during this exact window, society is going to face inevitable chaos. There's literally no room for complacency here.
Which brings us to Part 2, knowledge versus true education. So how do we actually prepare for a change this massive? To answer that, we really have to look at the philosophical foundation of the speaker's argument, which draws a very sharp line between what we know and how we actually learn to live our lives.
Think about it. We can literally pull out our phones, ask an AI for the temperature on Mount Everest, and get an answer instantly. That is knowledge. The source argues that South Korea, and really the entire modern world, has acquired immense amounts of this knowledge. Data is just everywhere. But the speaker argues that we are severely lacking in what they call true education. Sure, we have all the data in the world right in our pockets, but we haven't been taught how to actively live, how to ethically apply that knowledge, or how to navigate the really complex future ahead of us. We are essentially data-rich, but completely wisdom-poor.
To really ground this idea, the speaker makes a pretty profound claim. The source views the accumulation of all this modern knowledge as the result of immense global sacrifices. Basically, the world sacrificed so that this high level of technological and informational infrastructure could be achieved and shared. Because of that, having this knowledge isn't just some modern convenience, it's a profound duty. As citizens, we have a moral obligation to figure out how to actually use this information to better the world, rather than just mindlessly consuming it for entertainment. We owe a debt to the structures that gave us this knowledge, and paying it back requires genuine wisdom.
Moving right along to Part 3, the youth's political awakening. This is where we see a fascinating real-world application of this philosophy. Let's explore how this historical lack of true education actually manifested in the younger generation, and more importantly, how the source observes it drastically changing right in front of us.
There's this highly specific, colorful anecdote used to make the point. For the past decade or so, the speaker claims the youth were stuck in this state of apathy and materialism. They were happily spending 24,000 to 27,000 won, which is a massive markup by the way, on fancy hotel coffees just to take selfies and pose for social media. All the while, according to the speaker, they were completely oblivious to the fact that the foundational pillars of their nation were literally rotting away beneath them. They had the smartphones, they had the data, but they completely lacked the societal awareness to see the structural decay happening all around them.
But according to the source, that era of hotel coffee selfies is over. The youth are finally waking up. There is a massive rejection of political apathy happening right now. The younger generation is suddenly realizing that the nation's systems are failing them, and that their sovereignty is under direct threat. The speaker actually uses some pretty fierce language here, describing entrenched political figures as parasites and zombies who have historically taken advantage of the public's ignorance. Now, instead of just complaining online, the youth are stepping up. They're demanding entirely new national structures and protesting against what they perceive as deep, systemic corruption. It's this massive shift from being passive consumers to deeply engaged citizens.
And that takes us into Part 4, demands for systemic reform. This awakening isn't just about making noise in the streets or tossing around generic calls for change. According to the source material, it's translating into demands for highly specific, sweeping, systemic overhauls.
The granularity of these demands is honestly incredible. The speaker outlines a deep mistrust of the current electoral process, claiming it leaves room for systemic manipulation and a total lack of transparency. To counter this, the demanded reforms are exact. Step 1. Restrict voting strictly to a single day to simplify the whole process. Step 2. Enforce same-day, entirely manual vote counting by hand, completely removing electronic systems to rebuild fundamental trust. And Step 3. Moving beyond just elections, utilizing direct national referendums to decide the ultimate fate of institutions deemed corrupt. The source is heavily advocating for putting the power directly back into the hands of the people, totally bypassing systems they feel are failing.
In fact, the source takes it a step further, posing some major structural questions. Should the National Election Commission be abolished entirely? The speaker argues that direct democracy and national referendums should be used to answer these existential questions about the government itself. If an institution like an election commission is widely perceived to be compromised, the argument is that the public should vote directly on whether to dismantle it, rather than relying on the very politicians who benefit from that system to fix it. It's a truly radical call for direct civic engagement.
Which brings us to Part 5, fulfilling our societal roles. This is the ultimate conclusion of our narrative. We've explored the ticking clock of this 3-year window, the critical difference between data and wisdom, and the demands for systemic reform. But what is the source's actual solution for fixing this broken system on an individual, day-to-day level?
And this brilliantly illustrates the core of the speaker's philosophy. The overarching problem, according to the source, is that nobody is actually doing their job. Everyone has abandoned their proper societal role. You've got presidents and top executives micromanaging lower-level administrative tasks instead of actually leading and finding the true visionary purpose of their office. You've got members of parliament entirely consumed by partisan games and self-interest, completely ignoring their genuine legislative duties to the people. And religious leaders are criticized for doing nothing but endlessly arguing over historical dogma rather than fulfilling their modern duty to actively heal and guide society. The ultimate solution to the crisis of this inflection point? Every single person needs to wake up, identify the duties corresponding to their specific position, and execute them perfectly.
Which leaves us with a pretty heavy final thought to chew on. The source material forces us to look right in the mirror. If we are truly in a 3-year window of massive societal upheaval, and if the systems around us are deeply broken and demanding reform, the ultimate responsibility falls on us as individuals. Ask yourself, in this era of inflection, with all the knowledge you possess, are you truly fulfilling your specific role in society, or are you just sipping that proverbial hotel coffee while the pillars rot? It's a profound question the source argues we absolutely must answer before it's too late. Thanks so much for joining me for this deep dive, and I'll catch you on the next one.